It actually would be this thick.
Hey guys, welcome to the 401 show. Once again,
what
this
show
is
are we
the
on?
episode 13, one of our last NASA episodes as we go through all these different channels and bring up the different topics as we go through these different chapters. How you doing tonight, Dave?
Good. I mean, all things considered, good.
Yeah.
We're having some technical problems, which could delay our NASA closure.
Yeah.
But I'm good. How about you?
Doing
Helen?
Good. Doing good.
Doing good, Helen? Yeah, she's toughing it out.
I
So, what are we all like fives on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, which brings up,
Okay,
gotcha.
gotcha.
Me being a sponsor here now at on our show with Thrive, and I was speaking with Helen about it earlier.
Yeah, why don't
So
you
we're
tell
gonna
us
get her-
some more of the wonders of
Yeah.
Thrive? for
So,
the next,
like last week, when I introduced it to you guys and talking about the product and how easy it is to take and how great and beneficial it is for you. I went over a few things speaking with Jimmy tonight here, and it really is about gaining your energy back. For me, at 45, I was having trouble, getting through the day, and I was pounding down a lot of coffee, and which, I'm not even against it. It's just a change for me and a lifestyle that made more sense. The energy is amazing, and I noticed also just normal discomforts, tend to go away, and you don't have as much problems.
what do you mean normal discomforts?
Well, for me, I would have, say,
Some
like
pains.
normal, lower back, or climbing stairs, getting up in the middle of the night which is, for guys, tends to happen when you get in your 40s, where you have to go to the bathroom through the night. None of those things happen anymore, So it's more of a change, and it's just premium grade nutrition.
That's one thing that happened with me is taking this. Not that I'm trying to bring everyone completely into my personal life, but
It's a
I'm
reality.
at that age where your sleep gets interrupted because
Got to go.
you got to go.
Yeah.
But on the few weeks that I was on that, I was actually getting good night's sleep. So you got to be asking yourself, why am I not on this right now? Why don't you sign me up?
Yeah, we'll get you going. But anyway, just to get back to it, it's very simple. In the morning, you just take 2 capsules as soon as you get up out of bed, and then 20 minutes later, typically after my shower, you do the shake. And it's very easy. It breaks up very easy. It's not like your normal protein shake that's thick and clumpy. It breaks right up, and you just chug it down. It's kind of like a milkshake or like a morning breakfast shake. For whatever reason, I am strung out on the apple pie. Now, they have 4 different flavors. They have vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, and they have the apple pie. And I didn't think I would like it. I just got it because it was a new product. Figured I would try it out. And to help people, as I try to get people to try it. And then the DFT, you put that on directly after, and you go off to your work day or whatever it is. And the cool thing is it just kind of absorbs through the day or as your body needs it. And it's as simple as that.
Have you ever tried this stuff?
I have a few years ago, and I really liked it. I thought it absolutely helped with my energetic levels.
All right, so that's TonySchwartz.Lavelle.com.
.com.
And
Yep.
let's spell it all out. TonySchwartz.
WARTZ.LE-VEL.com. COM.
All right.
Yep.
Check 'em out there.
TonySchwartz.Lavelle.com. Check it out. Sign up. It's very easy. You get a free account. Costs you nothing. And hit me up, and I can help you with deals from time to time.
Sweet.
All
If
good.
he's in the right mood.
That's right. And I'm usually
Not
I
all the
usually am.
time, but from time to time.
Oh, you're wondering about the positivity. Well, a lot of
Yes.
that comes from feeling good.
Yes.
All right, well, let's catch
Thanks,
up.
Tony.
Let's catch
Yeah.
up with you guys because there's, we've been on this pace where we're uncovering new information every single week,
Yeah.
and a lot of it, I got to go back and remind myself because a lot of it was hard to handle. Like it took me months to get my arms around this. Even probably took a full couple of years to fully accept everything. And then you start to learn how to cope.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the information we've been showing you isn't a surprise to you guys, but maybe some of it has.
Some of it is. Some of it's new for me.
Well, what I notice is when we talk about researching, there's things that I'll research, and you and I will talk about people that we've paid attention to, and you won't have any idea about the guy I'm talking about. I won't have any idea about the guy you're talking about. And a lot of the information that you've presented to us, I've never seen that. I was watching the the edited version where you brought in all the Armstrong, and I can't believe it's like you know the quote. You know, you hear the quote every year, the anniversary or anything that's big or pretty much anything that happens with NASA. And then here it is. All you hear is that quote. So through the years, you never go back and watch any of those press conferences. And before the internet, you probably didn't even have the opportunity to. Because what are you going to do? Go look through micro film at CBS or the library?
Right.
You really had to be a super journalist researcher in
Right.
order to find that type of information.
That's why, I think JFK's assassination was the beginning of the end of America's innocence. I mean, that day really marks the beginning of like the imperial United States, the invaders, the ones that are, we're not in countries anymore to defend them. We are there to occupy and take them over. I mean, if the number of nations we've bombed since World War II, it's staggering. It's over 50. Think about that.
Wow.
50. Now, that's an offensive military operation, typically.
Yeah.
So, in JFK's day, because research had to be done in the form of getting in your car and going to the library and going to the Library of Congress, requesting certain and it took, because right now, but Kennedy was shot in 1963. By 1968, there was a very small percentage of the population that was starting to pick up on the fact that that something was off here. Things are not adding up. Lots of credible people are saying things that absolutely conflict with the story. And it wasn't until roughly 1967, 68 when the prosecutor in New Orleans, Jim Garrison, he's the one now, he was probably the first real conspiracy theorist. And he was like, he wasn't a regular guy. He was the prosecutor in New Orleans. That's a pretty big position. And he went through hell. I mean, he got attacked from all different directions. Nonetheless, in Kennedy's day, it took about 30, it was around the time of Oliver Stone's JFK, which came out in 1994. So we're now looking at 31 years since Kennedy had been killed. And it was right around that time where more than 50% of the population now believes that it was not Lee Harvey Oswald. That was in 94, and if you go look at it today, the number's almost in the 70 to 80%. Like, it's a majority. So before the internet, it took us 30, 40 years to get,
Wise,
common knowledge about JFK. 9/11 happens. Now we have the internet. It's a thing. And it didn't take 40 years. It took about 10 years before we started to reach a critical mass with 9/11 where there was enough people now going, wait a minute, what's
going on here?
And we have now broken the 50% threshold as well, where now most of this nation no longer believes 9/11 was done by, Saudis based out of...
What's the percentage? Or roughly, do you know?
Oh, it's broken down into a lot of different... The number of people that do not believe the official story is very high. That's like in the 60, 70% range. The number of people that... So that's very easy to not believe the official story because you can still believe that terrorists attacked us, but we just let them do it.
Right.
And they're varying degrees.
Right.
But people that think it was a complete inside job set up by powerful people within our nation, we're creeping. I mean, that is where I am.
Okay.
And that I would say I'm at an end of the spectrum furthest end. I'm not like an average conspiracy theorist on the spectrum. But we're probably at 30 to 40% of the population now.
Interesting.
So that's trailing behind it. And now we're to the point where we've got cameras. Everyone now has a camera on them, a video camera.
Well, and after 9/11, all the cities that have, put cameras on every corner, every downtown area.
And so now what's happening is in 1963, they could pull this stuff off, and it would take 40 years for the population to figure out. In 2001, they pulled this stuff off. It takes a decade for the population to find out. The things they're doing now recently here, 18 years later, the population's finding out about it that afternoon. Like,
Yeah.
A Vegas shooter happens, and there's already people that understand the MO of our enemy, and they are already reporting the counter story that we're going to get on mainstream media. It's almost immediate, which is that's one of those things that was in the Bible that was predicted that in the last days knowledge would grow like crazy. I mean, it would, not just of the Bible, but of all things, and travel would also increase.
Well, yeah, I agree with that too. It is that, and it seems that you can go and find what it is you want from the internet. I mean, as easy as the kid can go and find out a way to make a pipe bomb, the same way you can go figure out about Egypt. Those are two.
But I want to qualify something because there's this joke, and it is not an accident. But people, I remember an Allstate ad where someone was on a blind date, and it was a terrible blind date. Where'd you meet the blind date? Oh, the internet. Oh, okay.
Oh,
It's
yes.
like they're discrediting the internet, right?
Yeah, I'm a French model.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And again, that's subliminal. People don't understand it, but that message comes through on so many places that when you reference the fact that you got information off the internet,
Yes.
Sometimes it's even automatically discounted.
Yeah, I know. I did it to people.
And look, you do have to be careful. There's plenty of hoaxes on the internet.
There is.
Without a doubt.
I've fallen for them too.
Yes.
Yep.
But you got to understand, it's like making fun of getting a free Porsche because someone left a gum wrapper in it. Yeah, there is some misinformation on the internet.
Yeah.
But let me also say this. Before the internet was here, you could find misinformation at a library too.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay, you could
sure.
go and find erroneous information. All right, somehow society has survived.
You
All right.
see how anyone can write a book now. It used to. I guess as a child, you think that this book is written, it must be true. Same thing with school when they're teaching you. You're being programmed that what's in this book is true, and now you know that I could write that book and tell you about anything, right? About landscaping and have it completely wrong. Doesn't mean I can't publish it and put it out there.
Right.
Yeah, so look, and that's where the laws of supply and demand kick in. Because if 9/11 really were done by 19 guys in caves, I guarantee you, put it this way, I know personally hundreds, and I know that there are probably over 1 million, if not more, people that have rerouted their entire life just on 9/11 because they saw something wrong with 9/11. Now, in our case, at least for me, that ultimately led to the Bible. So my life was going to get rerouted anyway. And I just don't think, now maybe we could probably take a poll and some people will say I'm not a reasonable person. However, maybe I'm not, but I don't think that many people can be so unreasonable to see something that's not there, to research something for so long, to find so many corners of it.
That don't
Well,
make
I'm
sense.
just saying,
Simply-
either I'm crazy,
Well-
along with 1 million other people, and we all saw the same mirage, which mass delusion is not a thing, by the way. That's not a real condition. It's never happened. So,
This far along,
We're all mass
I'm
delusional
sure.
now.
I'm sure people seen things that were wrong with Pearl Harbor, right? I've always once you realize where Hawaii's at, you're like that had no threat to the mainland other than California possibly, but I'm sure the whole city, the whole country was riled up. Yet it's not going to harm you. But without internet, you had no idea the true how close Hawaii was, from the mainland. When you watch it now, you're like, that's so far away. It was never a threat for a guy in Detroit, But I bet you the nation was in fear.
Of course.
Yeah, well, the fear, it's very important for what Eisenhower would later call the military-industrial complex. Or was that Truman? Point is they use fear to feed that industry. We've always got to be fearful of the Russians or communism or terrorism
Yeah.
or rogue states. And what's funny is the plans of the elite are coming out, and there is one thing they are planning to introduce more fear into humanity than anything that's ever happened is about to happen, and it would seem that it would be related to
DNA.
NASA and
Oh yeah. Yes.
what's supposedly coming from our skies. And again, that fear, because when fear makes people do, it turns people into mush. I mean, it can. If you're
Sure.
And I think there's a reason why God started waking people up a long time before. Because when I started waking up, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, everything's going to go down in 3 weeks. And here it is, like 8 years later, and now he's starting to realize, okay, this could easily go
Never
past
happen.
our lifetime.
Sure.
I mean, it's maybe something that won't happen, but that does not change anything about my beliefs on heaven and hell and the real history of Earth. But there is this overcorrection, like when you first learn this stuff, and
Yeah.
this is when you are least emotionally in a good spot to be talking about it. It's when you know the least amount of information. You've seen enough to be certain of some things, and this is where, don't make my mistake, find someone that you can learn this with, zip it up until you get your arms around it, or use very leading questions with your friends. Because you say a few things that sound scary, and you're going to shut them down. Not
Yeah.
just their friendship, but even their looking into it. So it's because this is overwhelming. I mean, it's so overwhelming. I don't know if this is true. It's a guess. But I'm going to guess there are people that have killed themselves over the discovery of this. Because
Yeah.
it's so disturbing. And if you don't realize what the solution is, i.e. God, I could see how you would view life as completely hopeless.
Yes. I mean, it takes you down so many other rabbit holes that you are. For me, that's how it was when I started researching all of this and waking up to all of it.
When did you
just,
start researching this stuff?
Probably about 4 or 5 years ago.
So have you seen anything on here? What got you started? Like, what was the impetus?
I just think I got to that point in my life where I knew something wasn't right with what was going on in the world. I could totally feel the spiritual warfare going on. A lot of spiritual attacks, psychic attacks.
Give me an idea of what that looks like. What is this, from your perspective, what?
I don't know if I could go into detail with that right now. So,
Is this the
just
story?
a lot of personal things that happened in my life, and then seeing it outside of the box also with other people in my life and what they were going through, with my family, my friends, I just saw how it was affecting everybody around me and how people were waking up to, the corruption and everything going on. And
Is
Trying
this
not-
when
the majority of people that I do talk to and resonate with, they understand what's going on, and that there's massive spiritual warfare going on, and we are waking up to something. And
What have you seen anything on here that was a surprise to you? Or when I say, what are some of your biggest aha moments over the last couple of months, what comes to mind?
The NASA information was pretty interesting to me. I didn't know all
Oh,
that.
wait till we see today some of the real
I
stuff.
don't know if I can. I would really have to think about that question, David. Let me get back to you on that if I can.
Does
There's a lot of things that come to mind, so I would
when you
really have
leave
to-
a show, do you have a pit in your stomach from the things we talk about, or are you able to digest them all right?
I can digest it all right because I think I have been to that point where I've had that pit in my stomach, and this was probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I know what that feels like. Like, oh my God, what is going on? I didn't want to leave my home. You know, and it was almost to the point where I had the social anxiety. Well, I do have social anxiety, but you know that absolutely started coming into play where I didn't want to leave, and I didn't know what was gonna, what was happening next. I mean, you really have to, kind of have to look at everything outside of what's going on, and it's on a whole bigger picture that most people will realize. I guess I'm having a hard time wording it, but.
No, it's so overwhelming.
It is.
It's hard
I
to
don't
sometimes.
get that. I mean, sometimes I get that feeling, but it's not because of this. It's because I have been able to digest this information to the point where I know I'll be okay if I keep researching and, learning, and it's not going to affect me that way anymore. But I have been at that point. Yes.
What about you? Have you seen anything that was really disturbing, or are you on? Because you reach a point where you're just desensitized. I know I'm there. And that's why I'm asking this, because
Well,
I don't feel it anymore.
I leave out of here feeling good because I know that at some point I'm going to reach the guy, I'm going to reach me. Sometimes it takes a different type of a host or a person that's presenting the information to reach someone who's on the same level.
Right.
And I like the fact that I'm learning something here every week. And a lot of the things that you're talking about I didn't know. And I like the way that you're linking them to how you see it in the Bible, because those things I don't see, right? I have a hard enough time just knowing what the passages are, let alone to try to put something cryptic into it, or to be able to, I don't mean cryptic, to be able to find these parallels in the Bible and how, how comfortable you are with that truth. Right, you've now seen it for yourself. That's how it was for me with waking up, and then for a while, dude, I was talking to people about chemtrails or fluoride. Where we have talked about that in prior episodes, and then one of the episodes, Dave, you said, "Well, none of this other stuff matters if your relationship isn't right." Like it doesn't matter if you're getting lead and flint or, essentially these type of tragedies happen to people all over the globe. But when you're locked in faith, things are going to be all right, even though right now it's horrible. And I think if you have that type of relationship, yes, your anxieties start to fall away because you're just arming yourself with knowledge at that point, right? When I go into YouTube, I know what I'm going for now, right? If I'm going to get trapped in that, because sometimes I'll go right on by it. But for me, it was really economics that made me wake up, because I essentially, not that I didn't party too much or do some wrong things, but I've always worked. I've been working since 13 years old, so when I couldn't pay my bills, yet I was doing everything I was supposed to do, is when it really started looking like, what the hell's going on?
Ditto, Tony.
Yeah.
Ditto.
What's going on? That's
Working
really
my
what
butt
woke
off, going
me
to
up.
school,
It's like, okay.
trying to make, it was just one thing after another. It was like, how am I working 2 to 3 jobs, going to school, and I'm still.
Sid had a really
Economics,
good.
absolutely.
She had a good analogy a few weeks ago. It's almost like our society is playing musical chairs, like by design. Like every year, there's a couple more percentage points of the population that are in the
Falling under.
and you just can't trust statistics. And I can say this as like a business guy. You can use statistics to say whatever you want. I mean, you can what's a good analogy for it? They're just
They can make it sound good, rosy,
you can make anything sound like anything with
or
statistics.
doomsday. Yeah.
I don't know why I was telling you that, but I'm sure there was a very good reason for it. We were talking about links to the Bible. You know, that didn't come lightly.
Right.
And I was going to show you because when I, and this is the second one I do this to, probably I think I average maybe, on average, 2 hours a day, 10 hours a week, just studying. I'm not going to say reading, but studying this. Like, you read it, so like I'll take a passage that for some reason gets lit up in me. So right now, I'm looking at the book of Daniel. And actually, for anyone watching, like if you want to, like this is what it looks like when I do this thing. I like writing notes and going back, and it's amazing. Questions I have, I'll go back a year later, and they have been answered along the way. So for me, studying it involves, it's what I would do for any document. And again, this is evidence that this is a spiritual war, because we reference a lot of ancient texts here. I mean, we've talked about the Epic of Gilgamesh. We've talked about the works of Socrates, of Plato, Epictetus, Sophocles, you name it. We've gone into books that aren't in the Bible, Enoch, the Book of Giants. I am a fan of ancient writings. I actually do. You know me. I think prior generations actually knew the world more accurately than we do now.
Well, just the quote book that you guys created, that's one of those things that I would never, it wouldn't interest me to go and gather all these quotes to prove a point, right? That all these guys through time have been saying it. Whether you believe it or not, I'm still trying to wake you up, and I'm going to show you in this fashion as well. That's the idea, right? Or just quotes that you liked personally?
No, these were the quotes. So something happened in 2011 when I started looking into 9/11, and I didn't just look into it. For some reason, it was like an obsession, all right? I felt the need to have to download and save video. And I started, I've got a library of video, and I'm so glad I did, because a lot of the things that I reference just on the fly are things that I have seen before. So I'm referencing something I know exists. And with the routine we're getting into here now, so we're recording tonight, and then over the next 6 days, a lot of the things that we brought up, if I would have mentioned them, I'll go look for them. The easiest place to go look for them is on YouTube.
Sure.
And there are times where I cannot find it. It's like it's gone. But then I go looking for it in my personal files, buried in my computer archives.
Yeah.
And it'll be there, so we have access to that. So that's just kind of strange. But one of the obsessions I had along the way were these astonishing quotes that I just wanted them for myself. I just started keeping a database of them. And by the time we got to around 300-400, I'm like, this is a book. And I like quotes, and I like things you can read, frankly, like in a bathroom. At a minute, like we were just talking before the show about the attention span of humans, because it's
Short.
and shrinking.
Yes.
I mean, Jimmy's talking about, 5-minute documentaries, and, Vine almost made it with 7-second videos,
Yeah.
6-second, whatever.
Well, some of those guys are very, very influential and profitable because of that.
Right.
To shoot the little.
There's something
segues.
going on with humanity where our attention spans are decreasing, whether it's just social or it's something that's perhaps also genetic too. Who knows? But that is the reality of our world. And this is where the quotes thing, because I know a lot of people that discovered all of this because something stuck out in some way, and they went looking into it. So I actually pictured a book literally that would sit in someone's bathroom, the kind you can just open up to any page. You don't have to be following the story. You don't need to be emotionally invested.
Just great quotes from people through history.
You just open it up because, I mean, when I'm in the bathroom, I'll read the nutrients on the back of a shampoo bottle. I mean, I'll read whatever you put in front of me. So these things are so fascinating. All it takes is one to just light you.
Yes.
And this is what happened with my friend. And this is why this ties up why I asked you about the feeling a pit in your stomach, uncomfortable. Because I forgot I used to have it, and I forgot what it's like. I'm desensitized to it. But I've got this friend in Chicago. He's been a friend for a long time. Athlete, drinking buddy kind of guy. Okay? This is my kind of guy. So a few years ago, he knows we made the movie, and we're doing this show, and I'm in a fantasy football league with this guy and a few other people. And you know me at this point. I wear this stuff. I wear badge of honor. Yes, I am a conspiracy theorist, whatever term you want to give it. I analyze
you're
information,
good with it. Yeah.
whatever. So, so these guys in there, sometimes they're ribbing me and whatever, but this has happened with a few of them, and the best example got some closure a few weeks ago. So I'm not going to mention his name, but this buddy of mine a few years ago reached out, and he had just seen a little presentation we put together, like a very detailed one. I don't think you guys have seen this, on how the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank, how it works and how it really owns America and owns us.
Oh yeah, we went through that one of our first shows.
We didn't do it in a way where it hit home. We did it once where it hit home. It's on video somewhere. If you look up my name and Federal Reserve, David Hooper, Federal Reserve, you should find it. And he called me up, this was maybe a year and a half ago, and he's like, Hooper, I'm pissed. I want to get him. And he's like, what? How do we do it? And at this point, I'm like, look, man, the only thing these people worship Lucifer. The only thing we can do is pray. And he's like, oh, come on, dude, wrong. You actually think this has something to do with the Bible? I'm like, that's where it led me. Yeah. What can I say? And he basically wasn't ready to hear it. Wasn't upset, but he's just like, okay, it clicked.
He's angry.
Year and a half later, up through last week, we've been talking more. And he sends me a message, and now he's actually going, dude, I've been watching this show, the 401 show. And he's like, you're starting to put this together. Like, I'm starting to get this now. And he's starting to read the Bible.
Doors are opening.
And he's starting to talk about Jesus Christ and God and getting saved, okay?
Yeah.
And he was then having his family watch the show. But his mom had to turn it off because it was so upsetting.
Yep.
Now, to me, that actually would be a credible thing, because if what we're presenting is unbelievable and your gut is telling you there's nothing here, you're not going to get upset. But
if it's just entertainment.
But if
you're paying attention.
But if you believe what you're seeing is real, you will get upset. But eventually, when that's cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
That will die down if you try to work it down. And then you can go handle this information. But it's like that. It's like getting burned when you first. It's scary.
Well, and as Alex Jones has always said, write it down. When you hear something on the show or you see something on one of our episodes, write it down and go research it for yourself.
Right.
Just start looking into it.
Yeah, I like to say that for all of our shows, and I'll say this to you guys. Do not trust us. Not that we're not trustworthy,
but we're students.
Do your own research.
There's a lot of
We're all
research here.
learning.
We don't have fact-checking departments like CNN. But the funny thing is we get a lot more right than CNN does.
Yeah.
We are actually held to an even higher standard than mainstream media. Because if there's a mistake in our show, oh my gosh, do we hear about it?
Sure.
Whereas CNN can say whatever and
change subject.
No big deal. So there are different ways we present the theme of the show. Like we paint dots every week. Another form is that we're presenting a case to a jury.
Right.
And we're in the middle of this trial where we're trying this book. It's on trial right now, in a sense. Like, could this thing really be true? Another theme of the show is embodied in the parable of the blind men. Do you guys know this parable?
I've heard it.
Yes?
I've heard it too.
All right, so just a recap for our listeners, because this is the vision you need to adopt in order to see the forest instead of the trees. So the exact origin of this parable is unknown. It's of Eastern origin, Persia, 1000 AD, give or take, whatever. That's irrelevant. And it's got many different forms. So I'm just going to give you the idea. It might not be the one you're going to find on the internet, but it'll be close enough. And the parable goes like this. There was this village of blind men. Everyone there was blind. And on this particular morning, the main gates to the city were blocked. And so there's a hubbub going on in the city, and the wise man, the wise elder of the city, sends his top 6 guys. Now, they're all blind, but he sends his top 6 guys to go investigate what this thing is. And they're all there. They're feeling around. They do their thing. They come back to the wise man, and they start giving their reports of what they're seeing. And one guy starts off, and he's like, we're under attack. These guys have swords. They've got stabbing weapons, and they're getting prepared to invade our town. And another guy's like, I didn't get that at all. I think what happened is some large trees sprouted and grew by the entrance of our village, and there's no attack. And then another guy pipes in. He's like, actually, I disagree with both of you guys. We might be under attack, but it's going to be a siege. They're going to just block us in here because that's a siege wall that we're dealing with. I don't know what you're talking about, swords and trees. And then the fourth guy piped in. He's like, what are you guys talking about? Because all we saw there was a giant python snake just walking by. There is no reason to be up in arms. These guys start arguing amongst themselves over what it is they saw, okay? Mm-hmm. And then the wise old man, the town elder, starts chuckling, and the room goes quiet. And he's like, do you guys know what you're looking at? And obviously they didn't. And he's like, you got to pool all of your information together because you're all right. I mean, yes, the thing that you're looking at is an elephant. Mm-hmm. And the tusks are the stabbing weapons. And his big body is what you thought was a siege wall. And his trunk is it was not a python. It was the trunk of an elephant.
Yeah, I've heard that story before.
And you know, you could go on with describing an elephant. So that parable exists because there are some guys that know 9/11 real well. There's some guys that are really experts at, like Sid with water and fluoride and poisons. The owner of this station's an expert at vaccinations. Mm-hmm. And they all see an evil conspiracy when they look at it for themselves. And they're certain it's there. They're certain of it. And what they're looking at is so horrible and so ugly that they can't imagine that this could ever really be repeating itself throughout in another part of society. So after I was now a 9/11 believer, and I'd go to a website that talked about NASA and aliens along with 9/11, I used to get pissed off. Yeah. I'm like, you know what? You're discrediting this because 9/11 is real. I mean, that's a real conspiracy. But then, you know, my brainwashing kicks in for anything beyond 9/11 still, meaning, you know, in my early days, I'm like, oh, I've just discovered the biggest conspiracy in mankind.
Yeah, I got.
By the time you're done, you realize, oh, it wasn't a small one, but it wasn't that big.
Right.
Right.
And so the parable of the blind men is at work, and you've got to have that attitude
to go out
and back out because J. Edgar Hoover, I mean, he's the head of the FBI for like 50 years. All right, this guy is looking down at the whole United States from a very high ivory tower for a very long time.
Yeah.
And he himself was so overwhelmed that he has a quote that made the book that a conspiracy. It was along the lines of a conspiracy has existed since the days of Jesus Christ that is so big, the common man, the common person, can't even fathom that it exists. And this is one of the ways they hide, is in plain sight. It's incredible.
That's what a lot of the symbolism and things we were talking about before, is that they're right out there. They're logos of companies. They'll tell you what they're doing a lot of times, and it may not be, it may be subtle the way they express it, but there's also, and I've also heard this too, that either it's boastful that they want to tell you what they're doing, right? So like, there's nothing you can do about it. And the other is it's kind of like a natural law thing that we have to know what's happening to us, but you're choosing to opt in. Say drugs and alcohol,
Right.
from a kid that it can harm you. So if you abuse it and then you're going to die from cirrhosis from drinking your whole life, right? It's a regretful situation, but you knew that was going to happen.
Exactly. So you guys haven't lost any sleep then over this?
Not lately.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Any things you want to mention?
Well, that's wrong because no. When I look at it as a whole, I guess yes. I think everything comes together as a whole. So, of course, I put my personal experiences into it as well. But as far as researching this, not like I used to in the beginning when I started going down the rabbit holes. That's what I'm saying. I haven't. I'm not at that point where I'm doing it all night and not focusing on my other, life events. So.
Well, there was a time, Dave, where when people would be like, "Hey, Tony, you're in a conspiracy, blah blah blah, whatever it would be," I would love to have that conversation. Like, "Oh yeah, did you know about? Did you know about? Did you know about?" Right now, it's not so much. Like I love doing the show. I love learning, but I don't. Maybe it's a negative, Dave. That I don't really broadcast like I used to personally. Like I don't feel my personal quest to wake you up, which is what I felt before. Like, oh, you don't know this? Because I think when you start doing that to people, they feel like you're trying to be smarter than them, so they tune you out because a lot of times
You do, and you can sound really arrogant too.
Yes,
And cocky, and it
turns people off.
It can cause a lot of problems.
It'd be like you bringing up, did you know that they found Muhammad Atta's license? And I'd be like, no. And you're like, you didn't know that?
And
right? That's the way you gotta make
God,
sure
I
you
used
talk
to
to
do- I
people
used
the
to do
right
that
way.
too.
Right.
Yeah, like you don't know that happened. Like don't treat them like an idiot because you turn them away.
Yeah, it started with the movie, and then I get a lot of release just from these shows. Like, it's very therapeutic. But in my personal life, I never bring it up.
Yeah.
Not anymore. I used to want to engage the conversation constantly. Now, I
Yep.
it's weird. I care. Obviously, that's why I'm doing this. This is not just for selfish reasons.
Not just.
It's like I care about humanity, but I don't care about any individual. No, that's not a good way to put it. I don't know.
No, I'm with you. You don't feel like you need to. I guess I'll have people very randomly, like you're saying, Dave. And this is the good part about doing it, is that guy remembered you from years ago. And I've had that happen as well. Like, man, you were trying to tell me, but I just wasn't ready to hear you.
Yeah, that's happened a lot. I've had a lot of people. I had another guy circle back
Yeah.
today in a comment in one of our shows, in one of our chat rooms, saying that he had seen our movie, a few years back, and now he's like fully awake, and he found this show, and he's like, oh my God, that's exactly where I am now too. So.
Because sometimes it takes you that. Because I was doing the same token with, long-term storage foods, guns, ammo. We talked about that before.
Right. It was a very physical preparation at first. Now it's all spiritual for me.
Yeah. Where you had said that, that hey, I was doing those things. Well, I did too because I looked at it as insurance. If something happens, man, I
I'd
gotta
still
take care
get
of
the
my family.
guns.
Gotta be
'Cause-
prepared.
Well, once you have those things, once you have yourself a few months of, and in multiple spots, I've done all of this prep idea. and once you have those things in place,
You have them buried, like
you relax a little
GPS
bit.
coordinates.
Yeah, or
You wanna share 'em
I
with
have a
me
lot
right
of
now?
friends,
All right.
friends of friends with friends.
So some weeks we get started. We look at a passage out of the Bible or something out of history, and there's just a little connection that it just sort of hit home for me. I guess I understood it intuitively, but I'm going to tie two passages together that were written almost 1,000 years apart. All right? And they're talking about something that's happening today. So Daniel was written somewhere around 550 BC. He started from being a little kid as a prophet to the kings of Babylon, and he outlived 3 of their regimes. And God was very clear with him and gave him a ton of visions. He's probably one of the most significant prophet. He's certainly one of the most, if not the most, significant prophet in the entire Bible. And if you get to the point where you believe that that's a true book and it is in fact predicting the future before it happens, get to know Daniel's 70th week. You familiar with that term?
I'm not.
No.
Nope.
The 70th week is the last 7 years of humanity. And everything he talked about is lining up. I mean, everything.
70th week or 70th generation?
His 70th week.
Okay.
So Daniel predicted that there were going to be 70 weeks of years left with an unknown interval. He then explains what happens for the next 69 weeks, which takes us up to Jesus Christ coming to earth. So he's writing this 600 years before the Messiah shows up. And he's like, here's what's going to happen in the next 600 years. And he gets all of it right. All of it, to very precise details. And we have now since discovered that this was, in fact, in print by 500 BC. A lot of pagan scholars, especially out of the universities, that can't possibly believe there is a God. So everything they think about begins with an assumption that
It's fake.
that it looks as if it's not correct. So their argument was that, well, the book of Daniel predicted the future so precisely that it could not have been written in 600 BC. It had to have actually been written much later,
Closer.
and it was looking back on history because no way could they have gotten that right. But you won't see this on the news. You gotta know what you're looking for. But we've now pinned it where we know for a fact this was in writing. So I'm gonna read you 2 passages. One was written 2,600 years ago. All right? Now, this might have been written by Daniel's hand, but this is God's words. Daniel 7:23 reads like this. Thus he said, as for the 4th beast, there shall be a 4th kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the kingdoms, and it shall devour the whole earth and trample it down and break it to pieces. Now, beast, a 4th beast. By now, we already know that a beast is a system, a governmental system. It can also be an individual person, okay? We have the same things in the English language where, just trying to think of an example.
Is it like the eagle for America, the bear for Russia?
Well, that's like a symbol, but all right, so the term beast can apply to an individual because the Antichrist, the individual of the Antichrist, is also known as a beast. But a beast is also a system. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand the context of what you're...
how
okay.
it's being used.
So, all right, so Daniel in 600 BC says, now the 4th beast. Now remember, he's predicted that he predicts 3 of them. He's like, here come the Persians. Then come the Greeks. Then will come the Romans. Then the Romans are going to go quiet. And what's going to come out in the last days after Israel's regathered, that also happened. Actually, he said they'd be regathered twice, which happened because they were in Babylon. They were sent back to Israel. They screwed up again. Now they're dispersed for 2,000 years, and they will now be they were regathered in 1948 for the last time. Not in the spirit, meaning they're not gathered together under like God's anointing. What's going on in the Gaza Strip is not, I don't think, is anything that makes God happy. So just because he predicted it doesn't mean that.
You're talking about the Marshall Plan of reconstituting them, or that? I mean, I know it's the Rothschilds, but I'll do the research on that.
I think you're talking about the Balfour Declaration, which was the document after World War I that cleared the land so that they eventually could, the Zionists could eventually reform Israel.
Yeah,
I don't want to get into
Yep,
history of Israel. I need to freshen up a little bit.
Me too.
The point is, okay, so he predicts the first three beasts. And the fourth one, it's something the earth has never seen. And it's something that's going to, it's the whole earth. That it's, this is not a kingdom that advances by invading its neighbor and then expanding and then invading those neighbors and expanding. This is not a territorial type of kingdom. It's as if this kingdom is going to be everywhere, all-encompassing. This is basically the New World Order, written about 2,600 years ago. An entire world system. Okay, now let's flash forward in the Bible. We're going to flash forward about 600 years. Book of Revelation. Jesus appears to this guy, John. And it reads like this. Because they're going to reference a beast here. And it's the same exact beast that Daniel was referencing. Remember I said the way God writes is he will have different people in different languages and different epochs writing about the same event. Parable of the blind men. They're writing about the same event from different angles. Now, a lot of like rookies, or if people that are just looking to dismiss this book will say, oh, there are inconsistencies in the book. Because this one witness report said there were two women at Jesus' tomb, and this eyewitness report said there was one woman at the tomb. No, they don't conflict with each other. It's like a witness statement.
Right.
I saw two guys running out of a bank with guns. A witness from another, standing in a different location, saw four guys running out of the bank with guns. Is one of them a liar? No. It just means
point
that.
Of view
so.
or timing.
The Bible is the parable of the blind men. He's showing us the spiritual world from many, many different angles. It's another reason Revelation's the last book in the Bible, and it's written in code. And it's the only book that actually promises you get like a blessing in heaven if you read it. And the only reason I can think of that is because in order for you to understand the book of Revelation, you have to have read everything else. Because all the codes, what's a beast, when something comes out of the sea, what does that mean? Because I used to think that's out of a body of water. Well, no. You go back and look at the original Greek word, and you find out they use the exact same word here. It means out of the population of people. So Revelation 13, 16 to 18 reads like this. Now, that's this version. Some versions will say, it causeth. This one happens to be, I think we went King James on this. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in the right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Okay? Now, we can see the 666 all over the place. We see it in our media. We see it in our sciences. We see it at Disney. The system, the system's not that hard to find once you know what you're looking for. These areas right here that are on this elite control grid, like I said, the Illuminati are not going to own plumbing supply store chain, but they will have their people in at the water department and the FDA and the EPA.
Or the lead corporation.
So humanity is essentially controlled through these, I think, what do we got here? 12 institutions. And hang on, let me scroll back up here. So from my perspective, I'm starting to see this beast system materialize. You know, they're talking about 2,000 years ago, there's going to be some sort of a device that is put on us in some way that's going to keep us from buying or selling, which, I mean, that's a mystery for 1,950 years until we hit this century. Now all of a sudden, it's not possible. There's people actually doing it. You know,
already being
the
done.
first
Yes.
wave, they're doing
yeah.
it willfully.
Yes,
It's
they
already
are
being
doing
done.
it willfully.
I'm sorry, man.
Yep.
And then you realize,
It's exactly what everybody's always ingrained. That it would be a piece of rice size chip in your hand.
look, and we still don't know if it's it still could be an I have a feeling it's going to mess with our DNA because God is going to allow this to happen because in a way God's got this problem, all right? So we fall when Adam and Eve go down. But God then comes back with a promise. Essentially the promise is as long as, you come to believe before you die, you're in. You'll be saved. I'm not necessarily one of those once saved, always saved, but we'll go back to that later on another show. So he's got a problem because at some point we got to cut the line off. It's sort of like the people that were trying to get out of Saigon in the last days of Vietnam. At some point they have to shut the gate, and someone's on the outside and someone's on the inside. Now, God cannot break a promise. He cannot be untruthful. There is no darkness in him. That's why I don't think he can appear to us, because there is darkness in us, and he'll extinguish it, i.e. kill us. I think that's what being in his presence would do to us. So,
Man, I never thought of that.
because he's made of light,
Full transformation.
total light. And so if you put something that's brighter than the sun in this room, because every man that runs into God or an angel, same thing. First of all, it's not a pleasant experience ever. So if you have a spiritual experience that's pleasant, you can almost guarantee that is demonic. Because the common characteristic throughout all these scriptures, where if you have something like that, every time someone from heaven showed up, it scared the shit out of people. Like they would break down. So you'll know the difference. And the light is so bright, like they were blinded, some temporarily, some permanently. So if there's something as bright as the sun in here, there will be no shadow. Period. The luminosity is just,
Right.
there will be no shadow.
Right.
Meaning there will be no darkness in here. Mm-hmm. So if there's a shadow, if a shadow constitutes something that makes you up and it's about to disappear, it could end your...
Yeah, fully enlighten your whole body.
Don't
like
understand.
X-ray.
There are 3 parts to, your mind, body, and soul.
Yes,
Kind of like the Trinity. I don't know how they all work together. But the point is this is a connected messaging system that is telling a thematic story all throughout history. And this is what blew me away. And I think these 2 passages are talking about what we see going on with NASA. So we're trying to close NASA out. Any questions on anything so far?
No.
All right, we're going to fly through a few images today, and we're going to load up some big oops that NASA lets out. This machine right here, which looks like a cigarette machine.
4 minutes.
Okay.
All right. So this is the machine that did the computations that got us to the moon. Just thought that's interesting. Majestic 12 we will get into later.
Not sure that I agree with you, David, on those every spiritual experiences should be, or you said is considered
Demonic.
negative or denominator.
Well, I wouldn't. It's every passage I've ever read in here. This is subjective. So far, every time I have read a passage of where a spirit from heaven has materialized, it scares the bloody hell out of whoever it is. I mean, all of the prophets that were first, they all ran. They all broke down. They all freaked out and felt it was the scariest thing in their life. Whereas the familiar spirits, they feel good. They don't want, as long as you are on your way to their kingdom, you're going to have a nice, smooth ride.
Okay.
You
I can
start
see- I
doing
can see
things
that.
like showing up on shows like this and being exposed to this information. Because even just saying the name Jesus, it's an agitating name. And if it used to agitate me, because I used to have dark spirits all over me. And I could feel it. There was like a perceptible emotional reaction. Which goes back to those quotes from last week where he predicts he's going to be hated by people that don't follow him. What a polarizing guy, which I now totally get. How can you predict that your name will have that impact on people? So we are dealing with a beast system. At the end of the day, all of the power, all of the structures that the Illuminati or that evil does business under are shaped like a pyramid. It's shaped like our military. It's shaped like the actual buildings that we see dotting every continent. And remember, Satan's a counterfeiter. And that means things that you see his kingdom doing, he got it from heaven. Now, there's a passage in Revelation that says when the new Jerusalem comes down, it's going to be 12,000 furlongs by 12,000 furlongs. Okay? By 12,000 furlongs. So everyone
Yes.
By
assumes
12 by 12.
so everyone assumes we're dealing with a cube. But there's another structure that can meet those requirements. It's not a cube, and it's a pyramid. So I suspect that God's kingdom actually is one of pyramids, and Satan has counterfeited it. Because every breakdown you find, and I don't care if it's the image on the back of our dollar bill with the all-seeing eye and the pyramid underneath, or whether it's just if it's just how the intelligence agencies work, it's the same concept. They own the top stone,
Yep.
the top one. Because from there, you can control everything beneath you.
Yep. Yep.
And that is how the Illuminati, that is how they do it.
Like a broken
Pyramid
down
scheme.
It
like
is.
organization or mafia.
So look, these guys, in my opinion, they are a kingdom. And they are now essentially going public in the world. And it's hard to not see it unless you're sticking your head in the sand. So how much time do we have, Jimmy?
15 minutes.
Oh, 15? I thought we were 4. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, then that changes a couple of things. All right, any questions on these graphics that I didn't make these? These are done by other people. And that, one of the nice things is you come to some of these conclusions that are just nowhere near what we were taught for our whole life. And at least I did. I wondered if I was crazy.
Well, you get
I
angry.
still do sometimes. But when you find that someone else completely apart from you, different set of eyes, looking at different set of information, can come to the exact same conclusion. And actually there's millions, if not tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions that people are starting to get this.
Mm-hmm.
That for me is a sign that this is a spiritual. That this is spiritual. So
When you see it in the pop stars and you see it at Super Bowl and you see it, because a lot of people watch those shows and they don't see any of it, Dave, right? But now that I'm awake a little bit, I do look for it and I do see it. How is that parallel? How is it that we have so many that completely watch the Super Bowl and not see any of that? And then guys that are awake because of the symbolism? That's what got me with that, Katy Perry and Lady Gaga. There was another thing. I'm like, well, if you're doing this, that means you're out doing this on tour, and your audience is all young teenagers. I'm like, you're showing them these images, and that these images are cool to accept and to put them in the mainstream.
yeah, look, we talked last week about how we're being desensitized.
Mhm.
All right, and the human mind can negotiate a little bit. Like we are okay going a little bit over the line, like what we call little white lies, or we'll stretch it this time. Okay. So if you take a look at what's on television today, I mean, what are the shows that come to mind? What's popular?
Jeez. I don't know.
Throw out a name.
Blackish.
Watch TV.
I like Blackish.
I don't really watch TV either.
It's in there. I've seen the propaganda.
What's
in it.
Blackish about?
It's about a black family that lives in the suburbs and kind of like the things they go through.
Shameless.
Okay, thank you. There's a good one.
I used to watch that a lot.
Me too. I watched. You know what's funny?
Up till season 9.
I loved Shameless,
It's a great show.
and this is one of the things that happens is God starts to change because something happened. No one told me to not like Shameless. Excuse me, but I started finding myself disliking things that, and I believe I can't prove this, but I believe that when I asked His Spirit to come into me, it did. And these things that I used to love, I started, many of them just not liking anymore. A lot of we've all dealt with addictions. All of us have. Let's just be honest. One way, I'm addicted to coffee and chewing gum too. But some of the ones that I was wrestling with just fell away without even trying. It's weird.
Same.
And so we've got some friends that have given the wheel over to God, so to speak. And if that's happened, I think that even if they want to change their mind, I don't think that it's going to, I think God is going to do something that is going to ultimately, because this is not waking up to this stuff. It's nothing it's not a 24-hour thing. This show is a year long
process.
there's a reason we're going to end up with 45 episodes for year one. And it'll really be, in those 45 episodes, 500 dots. Hopefully enough to see the picture. We'll see. Do you guys think are you guys forming a better picture? Are you starting to? No?
Forming a better.
Somewhat.
No, I wouldn't say not at this point. When you talk about proving the case, I think we're laying out evidence.
Yes. Yes.
As far as what we're trying to convey or the story that we're trying to put forth, we're just showing you. Here it is. This is some things that we found through the times. For me, it's interesting as far as the knowledge goes.
Okay.
As far as learning. I'm not seeing the connection yet. I'm seeing how you're tying it.
Is there anything you guys have seen where you're like, okay, I didn't see what Dave sees, or there's a conclusion there, I don't get it, or anything pop in like that?
Well, for the quotes that you use, right? You're explaining to us how that quote relates to what we're seeing today.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I can see the evil in man without tying it to the Bible, right? Like by pointing out these conspiracies, I truly see it, right? I see it in the men that are doing it. That's why I asked the other night about men of faith, about the astronauts, because I think when you talk about things working in the shadows or compartmentalized, now that I can totally get, because we all fall into that trap. Mm-hmm. If I go to work and I make one part of a puzzle, I have no idea what that puzzle is. right? So those that are way above me know what, from the top of the design group, know what the idea is. But you never see that. There's no reason for you to know what that is, right? So if you do that in an organization, half the people that are in there, that's why I always stop short of, like when we say certain, there's plenty of janitors and people that work there that have no idea
That's a
what
good
they're involved
analogy.
in. You know what I mean? They really don't. They just deliver the copy paper.
We're still in the learning stages, I believe. Like Tony said, you're supplying the evidence, so
Well, I'm concerned about the people getting too overwhelmed, and every now and then, it might not be a bad idea for us to take a break from pounding this information, because I used to have to do it. Take breaks for a couple months at a time, just step away. But invariably, I'm here today. I mean, I would always get pulled back, and then I finally just gave in and made it a career.
Well, the cool part is with us being interactive, we have a crowd. We have people watching. So as you guys start commenting, I've heard that too. As we get growing, and we have more opportunity to have, say, an interactive conversation with our audience. Those are going to be that's going to be kind of a barometer for us too. Because the guy that doesn't like you is going to tell you exactly what you're doing wrong. And people that really want the knowledge will say, hey, I didn't quite get it with this expression. Go over that again, Dave. And that's something because last night was really cool when we were watching the playback, watching the edited version or the real episode. We're commenting through the whole thing, and we can be there with the audience. I think that's great.
Right.
Yes.
And our Wednesday night broadcast, that's when this show gets done. So 6 days from today is when we'll actually broadcast it to the world. This is sort of like the Saturday Night Live run through right before.
Correct.
A lot of the stuff obviously will make the show. And we cut out all the parts that make us look dumb and embarrass us. So,
I don't mind.
yeah.
embarrass away.
I don't mind embarrassing Dave.
Yeah, seems to be a lot of that going around these days. All right, let's just take a look at a couple strange things, because I don't want to ever leave here without looking at least a few. So, a lot of people watch the moon. A lot of telescopes pointed at the moon, because there's a lot of people on Earth, a lot of hobbyists that are astronomers. This is not a one-off video. I have seen what you're about to see from dozens of people. Like, I don't think this is made up. Something's going on, and I don't know what it is, but I'm going to show it to you guys, and then I want you guys to tell me what you think it is. Okay. I don't know if we're going to have volume or we need it, but let's see.
That's hand my camera down and the wave starts. This whole man, I don't notice it. Then it catches up to the camera and I do notice it. It's the moon, but when you're staring at things, you don't know whether it's your eyes or what. And then I notice a second wave coming. At this point, I'm thinking it's my camera. I look up at the moon again, and I just don't know what to think. I save the clip out. I don't delete it. I almost do. And I look at it for quite some time. It makes me looking at it over and over, and I'm realizing that this is not the way a digital camera malfunctions. This is an organic line, no pixelation, no shredding of the signal. And it finally dawns on me that the pan of the camera proves it. When I pan down, and I usually don't shoot this way, I usually stay center, almost always stay center, trying to improve my odds of catching something unusual. But when I pan down, the wave starts, and I pan in front of the wave, which catches up to the camera. That is the proof in the pudding.
That's a hologram.
You'll notice a couple things. The wave looks like it bulges in the center, as if it's going down. If you stop the frame and measure it, see that the sides are lower than the center, so there's kind of a bulge. It's also tilted a little bit, and it mirrors the tilt of the poles in the moon. I haven't measured it exactly, but visually you can tell.
Okay, there's a lot of stuff like that out there. This is not a one-off.
Hologram moon? Is that what he's trying to tell us?
Well,
You got a blip screen in
the
it.
little
It's a
thing he was just
hologram,
starting to. He called it a hologram, but he's like, I don't exactly know what. What do you guys make of this?
I mean, my initial would say that obviously there's something either wrong with his filming or
Well, then why can I go find
What's he saying?
this
Multiple
from
pictures?
thousands of other YouTube channels from all over the world?
I've never seen that.
Right.
Yeah, I would have to see it for myself.
This
I
is
would
off
do
his
more
camera.
research opposed from just watching the one video.
Right.
I guess the implication
Like I
is
said, I
what?
wouldn't. If this was the only one, there's so many of these. It's unbelievable.
Well, okay. I've recently learned about CubeSats they're supposed to be low Earth or low orbit satellites. That the reason why I heard this because I guess Pepsi is going to be the first advertiser, and I'm not sure if it's supposed to shine in space, like it's going to do a advertisement in space. But I heard it's called a sat cube. So if that's the case, and you really have technology that's far more along than we would ever imagine, and you projected the moon. Now,
I've been told the sun's a hologram this week too.
well, I don't know that I'm with anybody
I don't
on
know if
any.
I'm with
Now,
that
I'm not saying
either,
it
just
about.
what
Have you
I'm
guys seen
hearing.
It's a lot to
our
absorb.
promotional
Yeah,
piece
it is.
where a bunch of people, and I want to say it was in China, saw the
have seen
floating
that.
city,
I did see that.
photographed from many different angles?
Yes.
See, I think that's them testing holograms. This picture you guys see here, it's not in a great place to show it. This was taken in 2008 in Singapore, and I actually
2 moons or something.
no. So you see, you've got a large ship up here,
Yep.
and it's above Singapore. It's just in a bad window. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to use a lot of holograms to make us think things are going on that are really not. And I'll say this. God said that Satan would not try, but he would. He would be able to change the times, the calendars, and
The poles.
well, the sign, the things that give us signs in the sky like the sun and the moon.
Okay, or constellations.
So maybe to fool Christians, he does put up a hologram. He advertises the blood moon tetrad. But
timeline?
we think it's a real sign, but it's a manufactured sign by Satan. So
Now, I agree with you, Dave. Well, I guess what I'm saying is for this here, is this guy trying to say that the moon, that what we know of as the moon, isn't there?
he's not
Or he's
drawing
just-
that
That's
conclusion.
what I'm
Right.
trying to
He
figure
is
out,
just
too.
saying that there is a wave of energy that seems to be on a loop.
Okay.
And
Around the
and
moon.
It certainly appears of how a hologram wave would
Okay.
keep an image.
Right there.
Full.
Yes.
Okay. We're up, guys. We're going to be wrapping it up here for today.
Okay.
We're going to put in some video of some oddities of NASA and some of the things that NASA catches on video that would seemingly be not from this world.
Okay.
We're going to get into the science. We're up against the greatest deceiver in humanity, and there is a solution to him. And that solution, Tony, is?
Jesus.
Yeah, that's it, man. Get to know who he is. We're all fried without him.
Thanks,
We will,
everybody.
see you guys next week.
Have a great
Sound
week.
good.
Have a
All
great
right,
show,
guys.
guys.